Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Three Chicks in a Pod. As you noticed this evening, we have Miss Candy from the South Florida Tribune on. And of course, we have Miss Kari Johnson, Miss Chiefs Chick 87, aka Kelsey's future ex-wife. And And tonight we're excited because we're also going to have a former NFL player on the show because we want his take on how the NFL is doing now, and especially on NFL players, their mindset, because we not only as women, but as non-professional athletes can only assume why these guys will keep going after they're seriously injured. So, but we also want to start out this show because Miss Candy had a great weekend. She had her first NASCAR experience.
So, I did.
Do tell.
Yes.
Wow. Well, let's say it was the midnight ride of my husband because it's an 11-hour drive. I worked Friday until like 3 p.m. So literally we took off after work about 5 p.m. Got to Talladega at like 6 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning, and we didn't have a hotel. And I'm like, oh gosh, this is going to be horrible. This is going to be horrible because I had looked all week and like either the prices were sky high because Talladega isn't a big town. On NASCAR weekend, it becomes a huge town and everybody's there. Well, luckily for us, we had found somebody had canceled. And so we got in, yes, luckily. So we got in a hotel, so we did the experience on Saturday and Sunday. So we got to see the truck series, which ran a lot under caution. I was like, so if any of you have never been to Talladega, and I don't know if you two ladies have or not, but it is a huge, huge track. They said that there's like 2 racetracks that they could fit inside this one track. It's so big.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's huge. And I was just in awe of all the campers that they have. They have campers in the infield. They had campers on the, outfield, across the street. There's a dirt track across the street that they run races on. There is actually a Hall of Fame for motorsports there on the site. We did the truck race, and then there was another race Saturday, and then Sunday, of course, we did the big race, and the winner was Chase Elliott, and he was not leading with 2 laps left. So it was a really race to the end finish. It was really exciting. I actually was taking pictures, so I will be posting them. I have not posted them up yet on South Florida Tribune.
Why not? You know what, Candy, I don't care if you're exhausted. You had an amazing experience and you saw an epic finish. So
we did. It was, and
talk about that finish and everything. Chase, right?
It's Chase Elliott, yes.
What he did. I'm sorry, brain freeze. Because I'm taking on some of your lethargy for you.
So he was behind, and him and some teammates were pushing him forward. So the guys behind him were actually pushing him, propelling him forward. And it came down to the last minute. Like, it was a photo finish. It was unbelievable. And when I was taking pictures, I got to stand on one of the photo wells up on top, and I was on top of pit row. So literally the cars, when they came into pit row, they actually were underneath me at one point.
Oh, so that was so really cool.
That was, yeah. Oh. What an experience. And then I had to do the drive myself back. So Scott was feeling that well. So we left there about 7:30 Sunday night, and we didn't get in here till 6:30 in the morning. I slept for 2 hours.
Did you take yesterday off work?
No, I slept for 2 hours and then I went into work.
Oh, girl. We'll be fast so you can go to sleep. And I would love to introduce you to everybody, to Mr. Mel Farr Jr. Mel and Candy's husband, Scott, and myself as well have worked a lot together. Well, me not as much. Mel likes to pick on me because I made a very bad bet. And you owe me, buddy. You owe me for my bet.
Man, look here. I was rooting for him. I was watching him on my little bootleg little situation that I have. But maybe I shouldn't say that. But I was watching him.
It's okay. We all have them.
I couldn't believe how they kept coming back. I mean, if they just had a defense, if they could just stop somebody at some point in time.
Hi, Claude.
They could have won that game. But I couldn't believe that they kept coming back.
I know they did. That was a great. I don't know. I know, Kari. Can I say it now? Okay. I am so disappointed in the Carolina Panthers. Mel, are you familiar with Sam Mills?
Of course, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Candy, Kari, are y'all familiar with Sam Mills?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so for those who are not,
pounding.
Exactly, keep pounding. On January 2nd, 2002, I think it was the day before Saturday, January 2nd, the day before our playoff game against the Dallas Cowboys, and it may have been 03. Sam announced to the team that he was battling cancer. And he said, I'm going to keep pounding. You guys are going to keep pounding. We're going to keep pounding. Sam passed away. Sam gave us our culture. This is why I have such a hard time with Matt Rule. Matt Rule has decimated our culture. Baker Mayfield, after that abysmal performance on Sunday, when he forgot he played for the NFL and thought he played for the NBA, with all those dang bounces, and a couple of them were not tipped, and the foot mechanics, nobody talks about white boys foot mechanics, I'm just saying. But they, he said that he didn't care that the fans were booing. Sir, you should have cared. That was a very important game to the fans of the Carolina Panthers. That was a very important game to us. You needed to care. And I'm sorry. Okay, I'm off my tirade now. Okay.
And she gets left off her soapbox.
I am. And I stayed for the entire game, too. I started laughing, so I went and cried at the game.
There you go.
Okay, sorry. Okay, keep going, Mel.
Well, we've been dealing with that for decades. That type of disappointment up in Detroit. At least you guys have been to the Super Bowl. Detroit has never been to a Super Bowl. I mean, they won a NFL championship. That was in the 50s, but they're one of the few original franchises that have not been to a Super Bowl. So we've been dealing with this for a long time. So, I can't feel bad for you.
Right, fair. We've been to 2.
Yeah, yep. So I mean, we haven't been to 1. We haven't sniffed 1. But
I really thought y'all had been to 1 or 2.
No, never.
That's really sad.
No, we've only won a couple playoff games, I want to say, since 1970. I think we've only won 2 playoff games.
So one of my buddies was texting me today, and he said, for our next head coach, I want one of the Detroit Lions assistant coaches. And I was like, why? It was like, no offense, but I was like, why? Like, I thought you wanted to win.
usually when you become a Detroit Lion head coach and you get fired, you retire. Nobody wins. That's generally how it works. I mean, only one that's gone on. The only one that's gone on to have another job that I can recall was Monty Clark. I think he left and went down to Miami, got a job with Miami or something like that. But if you look back, most of those head coaches do not get another job, whether it's a position job or anything.
And just so y'all know what I said before the season started, I told Mel, Scott, and Steve that I thought that the Lions would end up above 500.
Oh, I have you as the Lions as one of my sleeper teams, ones that people were not expecting a lot out of.
And I agreed on that one on our show. I think Candy, you agreed with that too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, from your lips to God's ears.
Well, I just watched and forgive me, head coach names don't always stick, but your head coach has come in and created a culture, and those players have bought into that. You can tell they have bought into that, and they present a very united front based on on his passion. And at least that's what I pick up on. So, I mean, I like the Lions. I really do hope something happens to,
I do too.
great things.
I wasn't a big fan of the hire until I watched Hard Knocks. And then I realized that he was the right coach for that city. You're talking about a blue collar city. He's a blue collar type guy. When he first had his interview talking about biting kneecaps and all that kind of stuff, I'm like, who is this clown? What is he talking about?
Right.
You look at how he coaches the players and the type of, he's a player's coach, but he wants those guys to play physical. He wants to run the football. I believe he's the right head coach for that city. I just think they're going to have to do something on the defensive side of the ball, unfortunately. Because they can't stop anybody. Now, I believe they have players over there, so I believe schematically there's something that they're doing incorrectly where guys are wide open, where either they're giving them too much and the players are having to think too much. They're not able to read and react. Maybe they need to pare down the playbook a little bit so that the players are able to just go out there and play fast and loose. But right now, their defense can't stop anyone. And that's a problem. And you score 45 points, you expect to win 45, 46 points. How many points? I think they scored 45 points last game. You expect to win those games, but they're in shootouts. They're giving up 49. You just can't do that.
And isn't the Lions the one with the most score with the worst record? Like they lead the entire league with the amount of points scored in the first 4 games.
Absolutely.
They're the best losing team.
They're the best team as far as scoring, period.
Offensively, they're
that's what I'm saying.
Offense, yeah.
I think I saw that one of the shows that was on in the background.
Got actually a decent wide receiver that'll be really good with the right coaching today. Signed to your practice squad, Brandon Zylstra. Like he had some pretty decent plays last year for us.
Who's that?
Brandon Zylstra.
Who's he play for?
His brother. He just signed with your practice squad today. His brother's already there.
Oh, okay. I'm not familiar with him. What position does he play?
Wide receiver.
Okay.
So, Mel, I've got a question. And we really wanted you on because you've been there, you've done this. Every year we hear about player injuries and how they needed rest more, things like that. We saw Tua get hit in the Buffalo Bills game. I thought from the angle I saw it, I thought it was a stinger on his back against the Bills. Turns out I was wrong. Not the first time. Obviously, look at my score with the Lions. Won't be the last time. And then we saw him go down the other night against Cincinnati. My assumption, and I don't want to speak for the ladies, but I think that the other ladies agree with me on this, that they just have that players have this mentality because you, as a former NFL player, are a different type of athlete. You get up and you keep pushing and you know your body, you're in tune with your body and you know what you can take. Maybe sometime to the detriment of your body. But why don't these guys actually listen and actually follow concussion protocol? Like, why do they go out there and try to hurt themselves more?
Well, you guys were talking about NASCAR earlier, and a race car driver never knows he goes too fast until he hits the wall.
True.
And it's kind of the same thing with football. You push yourself. You have to push yourself further than you think you're capable of going. Now, concussions and other injuries are entirely different. When I played, they didn't have any concussion protocols or anything like that. You get knocked out, you were right back in the game, give you some smelling sauce, you wake back up, and they put you right back in the game. There is something wrong with the system, the concussion protocol system. I mean, when you see a guy and they have what we call noodle legs like that, he has a problem. There is a serious problem, and there's no way that he should have ever gone back into the game based on what everyone saw. It's not just a few people that saw this.
Right.
Everyone, all the cameras saw him stumble. And
right.
when something like that happens, I mean, could it have been his back? Maybe. I give that like a 5% possibility that it could have been his back. But the way that his head, and his head didn't necessarily have to hit the ground. It's kind of like in a car and you get hit from behind and you get whiplash. The brain moving around inside your skull, it could push to the forward of your skull, to the back of your skull. Your brain moves around, and the way his head kind of whipped, it was kind of like a whiplash kind of emotion on the first injury, where he probably, there's no question about it that he was concussed, and you saw him get up and shake his head like he's trying to shake the cobwebs out. Everybody saw it. I'm not the only one that saw it.
That's true.
So how the doctors and the independent neurologists, how they missed that, I have no idea. But there's no, sometimes you got to protect the player from himself.
Yes.
And, there's always a saying, you can't make the club in the tub. And for a guy like me, who was always on the back half of the roster, I had to play with pain. I had to play through injury. Now, like I said, concussions are different. You get the right kind of equipment. Concussions aren't necessarily a problem when I had the right type of equipment. When I didn't have the right kind of equipment, concussions were a problem. But with the right kind of equipment, they weren't a problem. But I remember, we were playing we were scrimmaging against the San Diego Chargers, and I think it was the last play of the scrimmage. I dislocated my shoulder catching a ball over the middle. So I played 5 preseason games, and then we played 16 regular season games, and we had 3 playoff games with a dislocated shoulder. And 2 days after the last game, I'm on the operating table. And I had to play with a harness that whole year because I'm on the back half of the roster. I can't afford to miss practice or anything like that because they're depending on me to be on the scout team and all that kind of stuff. So I had to do that. I had to do what I had to do to make sure that I kept my position, because those names are interchangeable. They just take them off the back and put somebody else's name on there. So, players, because, they know that the position that they're in and it can be taken away in a heartbeat, you do what you have to do in order to get back out there and get back on the field. But again, Tua is a guy who was a number 1 draft pick, who they're saying is their franchise quarterback. This is a guy that they should be handling with kid gloves. He should not have been back in that ball game under any circumstances.
No.
I think it was a catastrophic failure from so many people. I think that Tua failed himself, but he's a 20-something-year-old man-child. And I'm going to say that because I have a 20-year-old son who still needs his mom's advice as he's making decisions. Okay, so we've got a 20-year-old man that failed himself. You've got a coaching staff from support coaches all the way up to the head coach. You've got an organization, you've got an agent, you've got family, you've got close friends, you've got teammates that no one stepped in to take away those keys from his, when he was, before you drink and drive, someone usually steps in and takes your keys away. You don't need to do this. No one stepped in and said, Tua, your health is too important. No, they wanted that win against the Bills, and then they wanted the win against the Bengals. And it's like, oh, the doctor said it was okay. Dude. And the coach keeps riding on that, saying the doctor said it was okay. I'm not a doctor, and I knew the man was not okay.
Right.
I knew he was not okay. You healthy scratch people, you should have said, dude, you're sitting down until we can further determine you are okay. You are sitting on that bench.
And that could be his inexperience as a head coach. Mike Tomlin, he was on with Ryan Clark. I don't know if you remember, Ryan Clark played with the Steelers. Yeah. He had the sickle cell trait, and he was doing everything he possibly could to play in Denver, because when he almost died the first time he played in Denver because of altitude. Something happens with the
altitude sickness.
Right. And so he had a bunch of doctors, and he had his whole little spiel together, and went into the office to talk to Coach Tomlin about being able to play, saying, hey, I'm good to go. I got these doctors, and they say this and that and everything. I'll be okay. And Mike Tomlin let him talk for about 5 minutes, and then he interrupted him, and he said, look here. If you were my son, he said, if you were he said, it had something to do with the respect that he had for him is the reason why he granted him the 5 minutes to talk. But he said, if you were my son, we wouldn't even be having this conversation. But because I respect you as a player that you are, I gave you 5 minutes to plead your case. But if you were my son, we wouldn't even be having this conversation, about you playing. So he said, no, you can't play. and that's it. Because Mike Tomlin said, "Hey, man, I got to live with that. I got to live with that decision." So all these doctors and neurologists are saying this, and all these people are saying that he's good to go. But what if something happens? That one thing happens, then he's got to live with that. Where he had an opportunity to say that, no, you're not going to do this, but he didn't. There's only been, that I recall, there's only been one NFL player that passed away on the field, and that was
he was a Steeler.
Well, no, it was when my dad was playing with the Lions.
Oh,
guy had a heart attack and passed away on the field, and I remember that day like it was yesterday.
Who was at that game?
Scott was.
Yeah.
Was Scott telling that story last Thursday night? Okay.
Yes.
I remember that.
I sat there and thought we were watching live on TV the end of someone's life. I literally thought that because, we were watching that and there was it was at halftime before they said anything about Tua, but there was nothing said. And you couldn't see that man move. You couldn't see anything like that. So I literally thought that we'd watched them take somebody off the field that was no longer living. That's what I was feeling.
And you know what, Tua, he hears the whispers about his about him being kind of susceptible to injuries. He understands that people think that about him, and he probably wanted to come back out. I turned away from the game, and I came back out, and I couldn't really see on my TV, and I'm like, okay, that's a brown skin. Okay, that must be Teddy Bridgewater in there. And then I said, Tua, what is Tua doing back in there? I said, I couldn't believe that Tua was back in the game. Couldn't believe it. After we had that one incident where that one quarterback had got hit and he stumbled a little bit. I can't remember what team it was and who it was, but it was a number of years ago. And he stumbled. He got hit real hard. And we know he had a concussion, and he went back in the game, and it made such a big fuss about that particular situation. I just knew we would never see another situation like that. And that was because I had to rewind it when Tua got hurt to see what happened because I missed the play. And I looked at it, I said, oh, no, he's not coming back in. I saw him run back in the tunnel before halftime. I said, yeah, he's done. He's in concussion protocol. He's not coming out. And then to see the second half, and he started the second half, I couldn't believe it.
Well, yeah. Brait from Sunday night's game. So he plays, is he a tight end on Tampa? He's a big guy, so I kind of think he's a tight end.
Yes, he is.
Okay. I was like, based on the number in that, but the numbers don't mean anything anymore. Brait got his bell rung at the end of a play. And I think it was like one of the Chiefs hit him, and I think he ran in, and then he fell into one of his own teammates, I think was the play. And his bell was rung, and they got five. He took too long getting off the field, but the man couldn't move. I mean, he was struggling to get off the field, and then he came back in and finished out the first half. And then when at halftime, he went to the sidelines and talked to doctors and whoever else, but never went to the blue medical tent. He came back in 2 plays later and finished out the half. At halftime, they didn't put him in concussion protocol. So that didn't even play even after Thursday night's game. A man had his bell ring on the field, and he was allowed to go back in. And that's where I'm like, I get it. These men know that they have a limited time to play, that there's a lot of carrying on. Every game means something. I mean, let's not be just dismissive of that. Tua has the entire world watching him because they have spent every dime to put stuff around him. And so these men know they have all of this spotlight, all of these things, these weight that they carry of these teams, and they are pushing themselves back in play when someone needs to step up. And obviously it can't be me, but I can be part of a voice that says these men do not need to be playing because their health, their lives are far better than a win on your record.
Yeah, I mean, that's what the independent neurologist was supposed to be there for. I mean, they instituted that a few years ago. I don't remember how many years ago, but after obviously, had some problems with concussions and guys going back into games, that's why they instituted and brought the independent neurologist. Now, they're not supposed to have any affiliation to any of the teams or the NFL, and they're supposed to make that decision. And they're the ones that are supposed to step up and say, hey, this guy is not good to go. Now, somehow or another, I don't know what happened with the one with the Dolphins, but he made a decision that he was good to go. That that Tua told him, hey, it wasn't a neck, it wasn't my head, it was my back, and he answered the questions whatever questions that the neurologist has or whatever questions they asked for him. But the film says something entirely different than what Tua said. Maybe Tua doesn't remember. I mean, I've been knocked out, and I know when you get to the sidelines. I know when I got to the sideline, I'm asking what happened. Where am I? I've had it a couple times where, trying to figure out what's going on, and so he may not have known what had happened because you really don't know. You kind of remember the hit, but then next thing you know, you're either on the ground looking up at folks or you're on the sideline. Both times where I was knocked unconscious, I was able to walk to the sidelines, to the correct sidelines too, albeit. And once the fog cleared, I was like, what happened?
One thing two coaches that I actually really truly respect a lot, because I'll say three coaches. I really could respect Andy Reid. Kari, you know this. I do respect Mike Tomlin, and I respect McDermott with the Bills, because they put player safety first.
We didn't have Mahomes for two games because of concussion protocol.
Well, there's that. And also before, and this is when I really noticed it, when Mahomes Super Bowl year, Mahomes had second or third game. It was a Thursday night game, I believe. Monday night.
Dislocated his knee.
Yeah, he dislocated his knee, but it wasn't even a severe dislocation, and it was fixed like that during the game. But Andy sat his butt for 3 weeks and said, "No, you're our franchise quarterback. You're going to sit because your safety and your health is paramount."
Coaches who are secure in their jobs, they can do that too. When you have a coach like Andy Reid, who's been around as long as he's been around, and he's not, his seat is nowhere near warm. His seat is just ice cold. He knows, that he can make that type of decision. Mike Tomlin, he's been around for a long time. You're talking about guys. McDermott hasn't been around for that long, but he's been around long enough, and he's done some great things in Buffalo where his seat is not warm at all. He can make that kind of decision. Mike McDaniel, the coach that we're talking about. No, he's brand new. I mean, he looks like Alex P. Keaton down there. I mean, he looks like a kid, and he's got a lot of things going on.
You've got to weigh that risk versus reward, the risk versus the other risk. Sit to it for a game, because do these head coaches not know? Because I know that every single one of these NFL players, including practice squad guys, know how to pass concussion protocol. I know they know how to.
I'm sure.
We all know they know how to. And that's when I think you said it best earlier, and I've said it in the past too. And Kari said it earlier as well. You've got to look out when you aren't going to watch out for yourself. You've got to have that coach who's going to look out for you, because you have to have somebody protect you from yourself sometimes. And
we all do. It doesn't matter if you're a football player or you're Joe Schmo or me at the corner of what and where.
Someone has me for myself before.
I mean,
but yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's disconcerting to me. And Tua, he had those hip injuries, that hip surgery in college, but Brian Flores did so much with the Dolphins, got them to where they are. McDaniels is doing a good job so far this year. I think this is going to be a bad blip on McDaniels' resume, because, I mean, an hour ago, there's a concussion doctor, Bennett Omala, who said Tua needs to go ahead and give up football forever after this. I mean, Allen looked at him, he goes, after that hit, he goes, he's doing gang signs with his fingers. He can't help it.
Some guys are susceptible to concussions more so than other guys, and Tua's had a durability problem since high school.
Yeah,
and this, a lot of guys have had to retire because of concussions. I think Luke Kuechly retired because of concussions. Troy Aikman retired because of concussions. A guy by the name of Javid Best, who the Detroit Lions drafted out of Cal, He had a real bad concussion when he was in college. They still drafted him in the first round, and it lingered on. I mean, I know for myself that I have a side of my head that I know that if I get hit, it's a problem. I know that with the wrong type of equipment. So some people have, there's certain trigger points on their head, the way they get hit, that is problematic for them. And it might be for anybody, but I know for me, there was certain area that I had to protect. I had to make sure I protect because of if I didn't have the right type of equipment, I had to protect that particular area of my head because it'd be problematic for me. And some guys are like that. I think Tua, he's because he's so little. You can see he's so little, and the guy slammed him like a rag doll. I mean, I think it could be career ending for Tua. Even if he comes back later on, say he sits out 6 weeks, I think he's very susceptible for reoccurring concussions. Number one, because of his size, and just because he's had the severity of the concussions that he has had, lead me to believe that this is going to be an ongoing problem for him, unless they're able to figure out how to protect him better, or he's able to figure out how to protect himself better. This is going to be an ongoing problem for him.
At this point, I feel like.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I kind of worry about another Junior sinew situation. And I think after Junior, passed away, that's when, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that's when they really started taking a look at bringing a bigger forefront to CTE and to bring in the independent neurologist for the concussion protocols. But that was as soon as I saw that hit, I was like, two things hit me. You see a man down on the ground doing that and you're celebrating. And also I thought, oh crap, Junior. I just immediately thought of Junior.
Tua is I would love to see this happen. And I'm looking at this through mama eyes when I say this. I'm looking at this as a mama and saying, I wouldn't want my child knowing that he's had these two major concussions in a row out there on the field. But what I would love to see him is step into a coaching position, because he has so much to offer and he has a lot of those talents, and he could, I feel like that would be something that could transition very well into coaching and helping grow other people. But that's me wanting to protect this kid. I mean, I still feel like he's a kid. I want to protect this guy.
He is a kid.
Because
the three of us
I
could
want
be
someone
his mother.
protecting my child.
Literally, the three of us.
I want someone out there protecting my child. I want someone out there saying, you shouldn't be doing this when I can't be. And that, that's kind of where I feel like that's what happened, was he had no one stepping up and saying, okay, if you were my child, no Tomlin stepping and saying, if you were my son, we wouldn't be having this conversation. Right. You're on the bench.
Yeah.
And we've talked over Candy all night. I'm so sorry, hon.
Yeah, I know. Sorry, Candy. I'm glad we gave you your heads up at first.
It's okay. I mean, I'm down here, and it's hard because my husband took 2 falls late last year within a couple weeks of each other, and he was diagnosed as having a concussion. And there's actually a second impact syndrome that you can get that you don't recover from. And so we don't know what will happen with Tua. And you can get concussions. We don't even know. He might have had a concussion when he played when he was young, and you don't always get diagnosed with them. And so we don't know how many, we can't say for sure how many he's had. Has he had 2? Has he had 3? Has he had 4?
Right.
But at some point, the facts have to be laid out to him and say, okay, Tua, is it worth it? Because let's face it, you're going to get hit again. The National Football League, it's about hitting people. It's about tackling. It's about taking them down. We're not playing flag football. We're playing tackling football. Is your health worth it, knowing what you have just gone through? And we don't even know how long it's going to take him to recover. Yes, he's got feelings in all of his extremities, but what other, does he have headaches? Does he have I mean, my husband, I can tell you, he's got headaches, he's got migraines, he gets light sensitivity. So if we're watching TV, he's got sound sensitivity. We're watching TV, the commercials come on, we've got to mute the TV because that makes his headaches worse. He can't watch things in bright light because the sun. Those things don't go away. I mean, we're talking, this is 9 months after my husband had the concussion, and he still has these symptoms. What is Tua's future gonna be?
Especially under those lights, because those stadium lights are no joke.
And the sound, it could be really loud too.
Yeah.
It's a tough decision that he's going to have to make, you know. You're talking about playing a game that you would, obviously you would do it for free, and he's done it for a long time for free. Now you get an opportunity to play a game and get paid for it. And, he's one of the few, one of 32 as far as starting NFL quarterbacks. And that's an elite club to be in. And it's really difficult for, to give something up that you've done for so long, that's been a part of your life for such a long time. I mean, I know when I walked away from the game at 25 years old, it was hard for me. That was a difficult decision I had to make, but I was always on the bubble, and I had a wife and 2 kids at that time. My dad had his car dealerships going, and he needed some help at a store down in Cincinnati. And I made the decision at 25 years old that, I pursued my dream long enough, and it's time for me to get serious and get myself a real job. And that's the decision I made. I mean, one of the things I said, the last time I left my son, he didn't recognize me when I came back, and that broke my heart. And I think I left him, he might have been 3 or 4 months old. And when I came back, he was probably about 6 months, and he didn't want to come to me. He didn't recognize me, and he looked totally different too. I'm like, man, I'll never leave you again. So right. Once I made that decision that I was never going to leave my family again, I was kind of, the decision was kind of made for me at that particular time. But it's hard. I didn't watch football for a number of years. It was difficult. I still had a lot of buddies that were playing and doing very, very well at it as well. And it was difficult to watch it, because that's something that, you get in a routine around the things that you need to do to prepare yourself for training camp and the regular season, the things you do in the off season, it's that's been your routine for so many years, and that's been your identity too. And that's another thing that guys go through as well. That's been their identity. That's been who they are, so-and-so the football player. And that's difficult to walk away from. And, a lot of guys struggle with that. So it's going to be a tough decision for him, because, he loves what he does, otherwise he wouldn't be doing it. You have to love that game. You have to love doing it, playing that game, to be able to put yourself through what you have to go through in order just to do what people see on Sundays. It's not just what you do, Monday through Saturday. It's what you do in the off season, the things that you have to do, the type of sacrifices you have to make in the off season, as far as dieting is concerned, conditioning, weightlifting, playbook, all that kind of stuff that you have to go through. It just becomes a routine. That's just a part of your life, a part of the the way you go about doing things. So I feel for the guy. I would not want to be in his shoes, regardless of the money. It's not about the money. Right now we're talking about long-term life and the viability of life, the quality of life that he's going to have. And those are the things that he's going to have to weigh, because it's not going to get any better. I can tell you, it's not going to get any better. He's not going to get bigger. He's not going to get more durable. That offensive line is not going to get any better than it is right now. And, he's going to be in harm's way. So he has to do some soul searching. Maybe they'll give him one more opportunity and see. But that next opportunity,
could be his last breath.
It could be his last. So, I mean, those are kind of things that he's going to have to weigh. And, as a football player, you kind of understand that. You're a gladiator. You understand that. Yeah. Every time you step across those lines, you step on the field, you're putting yourself in danger. You're putting yourself in harm's way. So that's something that he's going to have to really, really, search his soul and pray about and talk to his family about whether or not he wants to continue to play football. I think coming back this year is probably something that he shouldn't do, to be honest with you. Give himself all year to heal if he wants to come back and try to play and try to do this thing again next year.
That's what McDaniels needs to do for him. He needs to learn from Ron Rivera, from Dom Capers, from Matt Patricia, from Bill Belichick. He needs to be able to sit him down and just say, you need to sit. From Sean Payton.
Yeah, unfortunately, the quarterback and the head coach are kind of tied at the hip.
They are.
How the quarterback goes is kind of how the head coach is going to go.
Backup. Teddy ain't a bad backup. Look what he did for the Saints.
Well, what did he do for the Saints?
He took them to the playoffs.
I like him. I like Teddy Bridgewater as a person, but I'm not real high on Teddy Bridgewater. Minnesota, he was there. I thought, with Adrian Peterson, they were going to be able to do some things, and it just never happened.
Teddy ended up having PTSD after his knee injury, I think.
Well, before, Teddy, he's just, Teddy to me is a good backup. He's a good guy.
Yeah, he's a good backup.
You can plug in there and, he win you 2 or 3 games, but to have him as your starter, I don't see it. But again, that's probably why I'm sitting here and I'm not a GM of a franchise. I don't know. Everybody.
I need a head coach. I'll put your name in.
Yeah. I wouldn't want that job. You guys don't have a quarterback.
No, yeah. No, you can help me find one. I got a couple on my radar. I got one coming up out of Carolina in 2 years. I kind of want. We have actually gone over quite a bit. We don't ever go over this much. We usually are a half-hour show. So Mel, thank you so much. Can you please tell everybody where they can find you, sir?
You can find me on all social media at Mel Farr Jr. It's Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and then you can follow what we have going on down here in Atlanta and also up in Detroit for the youth at melfarr.org.
And Miss Candy.
South Florida Tribune, www.southfloridatribune.com. You can find our podcast on YouTube, South Florida Tribune. Please subscribe at Tribune South. Scott said to say hi to everybody. He's down covering the last Miami Marlins game down, talking to Don Mattingly. They have one more game at home, but he's going to the Knights game. So he said to say hi to everybody.
Tell Scott I said to avoid those balls flying at his face.
Okay.
Miss Kari.
Well, you can find me here, obviously, and then as we launch our Chicks and Salsa show here in the near future.
Very near future. I said very near future.
Very near future. And you can find me on the NFL Carousel. Chiefs Chick. I mean, can't go wrong with finding a good Chiefs Chick.
AKA Kelsey's ex-wife, future ex-wife.
You're right.
Sorry, Rob. And then you can find me on Stay Up a Little Bit Later. We have the last episode for this season of Confidential at 11 p.m. Eastern this evening. Then tomorrow night, the Pundit's Pundit at 8 o'clock Eastern. Thursday night, Alex Fleming's NFL Carousel, along with Miss Kari Johnson. And then after that, I will have Inside the Pigskin with Scott and Mel and Steve. Is Jeremy going to be on this week? Do you know, Mel?
I do not know.
I don't know either. It'll be a surprise.
I don't know either. Steve was without power last week because he is in Fort Myers. So
did they have power back yet, Candy?
I do not know. So I just want to say prayers to everybody in Florida that was affected by that hurricane.
Much so.
We also want to give a shout out to Miss Megan Price that had something come up tonight that was unable, but our other chick,
our Queen of Hoop,
and our other chick that is not here.
And then you can also check us out on Basket Bros too on Sunday nights, and then just check out Sideline Sports YouTube page, Facebook page. You can find us all on Twitter. You can find me at Jenna Cheryl, and on Reddit. Look at me starting a new social media platform, y'all. So yeah, thank you guys for hanging with us.
Thanks for joining. It was a pleasure.
Yes, Mel, please come back again. We really
anytime. I enjoyed it.
And Candy, I'm so glad to see you. Yay, we do need to talk soon.
Yes,
yeah,
we will.
All right, you go get some sleep, Miss Candy.
Okay. And I start Fire Up Wisconsin in a couple minutes. So.
Oh, okay. Get off of here. Bye, guys.
Thanks, guys.
All right. Good night. Thank you.